team this morning. I'm Nadia Alexander, and we have, in no particular order, Anil Xavier. Stand up and say hello. Echo Lau. Anil Xavier, India. Echo Lau, Macau. Joel Lee, Singapore. Hal Abramson, United States. Anil Changaroth, Singapore. Dwight Golan, United States. And George, I keep wanting to say George Seidel, but you say George Seidel, don't you? United States. So that's the team for you this morning. We have 3 sessions, but they will go one after another. We have one break. Oh, Seng On, my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You're just so in front. And we have Seng On from Singapore. Woo! Sorry. I'm so embarrassed. I'm too sleepy this morning. We have a break halfway through. I can't remember when, but I'll remember at the time. 11 o'clock we have a short break, and then lunch is afterwards. We've broken this up into 3 sessions. The first session is about intercultural competencies in mediation advocacy. So when the focus is clearly on when you are an advocate in mediation rather than the mediator. Second one is on pre-mediation advocacy work for mediation, and the third one is on mediation advocacy skills. And each of those segments will be around 70 minutes, roughly. But I just want to start by handing you over to Princess Grace, those of you who were here yesterday, Irena Vanankova from the, not Merry Mediators, but the International Mediation Institute, to say a few words about mediation advocacy and what IMI is doing in that regard.
Thank you very much, Nada. It's a joke now. I'm very glad to see you here, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say a little bit about mediation advocacy, and say that International Mediation Institute, as a first step, put together competency criteria for mediators, and I'm very glad that we have already several qualifying assessment programs for mediator certification here, and we have IIAM, Anil from India, and we have CCI, Nadia, from whatever. I don't know where you are based now. It's from the world. Then we have SMC, Sion, and we have GEMS, Kim. So these are the qualifying assessment programs for certification, IMI certification for mediators. And the next very important step, the Independent Standards Commission of IMI, and supported by the board of IMI, it was decided that the next very important component in mediation, and we heard about that yesterday and the day before, are advocates and advisors who are coming with parties to mediation. They play a very significant role in making mediation successful and making it work. And the special task force was formed to put together the competency criteria for mediation advocates and advisors. So, and this is the first training for mediation advocates, and CCI is being approved for being a qualifying assessment. I was hoping that I will announce it today, but the appraisal committee is reviewing that, and we will make an announcement when the first mediation advocates will be approved by CCI. So I would like to wish you a very productive session today, and those of you who would wish to be IMI certified mediation advocate or advisor, and probably I should say advocate and advisor, right, Hel? What is the difference? We put 2 names here because in many countries in the world, advocate is strongly connected with the legal profession, and many mediation advocates who are coming to mediation with their clients are not lawyers. So, and it was suggested by those jurisdictions where you cannot call advocate anyone who is not legally educated, to have them advisors with O at the end. So that's the difference. So if you are a lawyer, you can say a mediation advocate, and in several countries in the world, you will say that you are a mediation advisor if you are not belonging to a legal profession. So I wish you it's a fantastic team, and I'm looking forward together with you to get through the day and to get the wisdom from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Princess. And so if you are working as an advocate or as an advisor in mediation already and have a certain amount of experience in that role and do this program with us this morning and are interested in IMI certification as a mediation advisor or advocate, then talk to us afterwards or at lunchtime, all right, or contact us by email. So I'm going to hand right over to the people in our leading our first session. But before that, I'd like to introduce you to a 4-letter word. And it's not Joel.
Anil, you're on.
Okay, good morning. What was the 4-letter word?
Anil.
Oh, okay. No. No, when we are talking about mediation advocacy, I thought I'll make an important announcement. You must be knowing today's India-Pakistan match, cricket match, and India won the toss, and it's batting, and now it is 56-1. So that's the current score. And India is batting. And yeah, no, we will be displaying it here shortly. And when we are talking about mediation advocacy, see the attitudinal setting that we'll be coming to at later. See what happens when the first ball is a yorker. You know what's an yorker? No, my God. See, yorker is a fast ball aimed at the toe of the batsman. So it will hurt the batsman if he's not able to defend it. And the other bowling is, see, the normal, it's a good length delivery means it comes to the middle of the bat. But if it's a beamer, it's directly aimed to the head, directly. If it's a bouncer, it hits the pitch and the ball rises to the level of the head. It hits the head if you are not an experienced batsman. So that is the opening statement that the bowler makes. If he bowls a yorker or a bouncer or a beamer, it's a very confrontational approach. That's the opening statement that the bowler makes. If it's a good length ball, it's a very, what do you call, it's a cordial approach. So what does the lawyer make in his opening statement? Does he bowl a bouncer? Does he bowl a beamer or a yorker? Let's find.
Anil from Singapore. As Singaporeans, well, first thing, Anil in Tamil means squirrel, all right? And cricket to a Singaporean, the only cricket he knows is the little thing that goes around, all right? All the stuff he said, right, sounds like a gang fight, right? So the question is this: if you're an advocate and you're going to mediation, do you want to go in like a gang fight, right? Or do you want to take an approach that's very different from your adversarial means, right? So you got to think about that, right? You may want to go in like me, haven't got a clue what's happening in the pitch, right? You only know that Pakistan and India are, playing and in love with each other, right? If you go on YouTube and take a look at some youngsters that they interview and they ask about kids from India or kids from Pakistan, they're all very friendly. They're all on WhatsApp chat and all that. So the approach you take can be very different. And what we're going to do today is going to go through some of those things and take you through a process to figure out how you want to go into a mediation. So cricket or no cricket, Anil, I don't know. It's first session. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Echo Liao, and I'm from Macau. Before coming to Macau, I studied and lived in Hong Kong for around 8 years. And before that, I was in mainland China. Actually, I was born and raised up in mainland China. So, although these three places are, we may consider them as very similar cultures, but actually there are very subtle and salient differences among these three cultures, even though they can trace back to the same origin. So, and today we're themed at cross-cultural competences. So I will start by introducing two concepts related to cross-cultural competency, and then my partners Joe and Hal will continue on introducing more details and relate all those concepts to the mediation advocacy. So I like to start with two stories from my friends. And you know, I was told that if I want to share stories of mine, but I don't want to disclose that personal information, I just say they are stories from my friends. So here we go, two stories from my friends, literally. So I have this girlfriend of mine from Canada, and he's a Canadian girl, and she married to a Chinese guy, mainland Chinese guy, from a very traditional Chinese family in a small village from northeast China. And when the girl, her name is Carrie, when Carrie was first introduced to her husband, to her mother-in-law by her husband, and she's a very outgoing and very easy to get along girl, and she opened up her arms and tried to give her mother-in-law a big hug, and what's more, she wanted to kiss her on her cheeks. But then, very unexpectedly, she got punched back at her face. Not actually punched back, but obviously the lady rejected her hug and kiss. So Carrie feels very sad, and there was some intense conflict between Carrie and her husband. And after a while, her husband explained to Carrie that it's not normal in China for people to hug each other, and even though they are very close. So for Carrie's husband, the last time he hugged her mother, maybe several years ago. So then Carrie, and so it's really a culture shock to Carrie. So that's the first one. And another friend of mine, and named Jian Wei, and he, excuse me. So he worked in a big international firm in Shanghai before, and he was a very successful leader there. And he got a name for very effective leader in his company. And then he got invited to join a small family business in another city near Shanghai. So then he became one of the top managers in that small company. And Jian Wei's intention was to continue with his empowering leadership. So in his previous company, he was really involve employees and engage them in all types of decision making, and he's very empowering. So then when he transferred to this small family business company, and he hoped to continue with his previous leading style. So he would very warmly greeted his followers every day in the morning, and invited them over to lunch with him, and he would initiate all types of communication, talks, formal meetings, personal talks with them to get their feedback and really ask how they feel at work, and how do they like his leadership, things like that. And he would even involve them in very important decision making at the company. But a half a year later, Jian Wei was told by by the CEO of the company that the followers don't really accept or don't really embrace his leadership. So Jian Wei was really frustrated. He thought he was so successful in that international company in Shanghai, and this small business is also in China, but how come the organizational culture is so different? So then the CEO told Jian Wei that people here in the small business, they are more used to paternalistic leadership style, where it is a very common practice in China, where leaders are like the parents in a family where they are in company. So they are like the parents to followers. So when they lead the followers, they would be very dictating. Sometimes they can be quite controlling. So they would many times they won't listen to employers' or ideas or concerns, but at the same time, they can be very benevolent. They are very nice to employees, but very strict at the same time. So Jianwei then gradually learned this kind of leadership style. And after half a year, he found his follower liked him more when he's more controlling and more dictating, dominant. So here, my friend, we called Jianwei has a relatively high level of cultural intelligence. So that's our first concept I like to introduce with you today. So in China, in Chinese, we have the saying, those who suit their actions to situations are wise. And here, since we're talking about cross-cultural situations, I would say those who suit their actions to cultural context are wise. So cultural intelligence is personal characteristic, but it's not stable. So every person has certain level of cultural intelligence. And for your information, I study psychology and behavioral science. So what fascinates me the most is I'm really interested in how people perceive things and how their feelings would influence their behaviors. And here, cultural influence is one topic in that area. So we would define cultural intelligence as one individual's capabilities of function effectively across various cultural contexts. So the higher the cultural intelligence level one has, the better the ability one has to adapt to different cultural contexts. So on the surface level, when people have higher cultural intelligence, they are able to learn the local language. They are able to adopt local body gestures, and on the deep level, people are able to think in a more localized way. They can understand local people's mindset, how they perceive things, and how their thinking styles may influence their behaviors. So that is about this cultural intelligence level. Research has shown that cultural intelligence is very important factor for successful leaders, successful negotiators, and it's very closely related to conflict resolution in cross-cultural circumstances. So now what I would invite you to do with me is I want you all to have a small self-assessment on your own cultural intelligence level. So I'm sure you are very smart, and then how can we develop more awareness about our own cultural intelligence so that we can be more self-conscious of our own thinking styles and behaviors when we are in different cultural settings? So here's how we're going to do this. Since cultural intelligence is a multi-dimensional concept, there are 3 dimensions involved in cultural intelligence. So I will be giving you 3 questions for each dimension. And to make it simple for you, all these questions, you need to answer them with either yes or no. So the more yes you have, the higher cultural intelligence level you have. So, are you ready? Good. So the first dimension is cognitive. So shall we go with from the questions first, and then I will explain more on the concept. So first question, do you know legal systems and government policies of other cultures? Yes, great. And second question, do you know social values and beliefs of other cultures generally? Yes, great. Do you know how to interact with people with different cultural backgrounds in appropriate ways? Yes, good. So if you have more than 2 yes, you will say you have a very high cultural intelligence level in the cognitive dimension. And the cognitive dimension is about our knowledge, our own preparation of getting ourselves involved in other cultures. And the second dimension is motivation dimension. We also have 3 questions for you. First one, are you confident in getting yourself prepared for cross-cultural interactions? Yes, great. Second one, do you enjoy new cultural experiences? Yeah, that's why we're here in India. And the third one, do you enjoy communicating with people from other cultures? Yes. So if you have more than 2 yes to these 3 questions, your level of cultural intelligence in motivation is high. And the motivational aspect of cultural intelligence tells us our inner drive to getting us involved in the new environment. So the higher the motivation dimension you have, the more enjoyable you will be when you are in new cultural experiences, new cultural circumstances. And the third dimension being behavior. First question, do you adjust your behaviors to a socially acceptable way in other cultures? Do you adjust your speaking habits in cross-cultural interactions when needed? Do you use your body gestures properly in other cultures? Good, great. So same rule here. If you the more yes you have, the higher level in behavior cultural intelligence you have. So this behavior dimension tells us about how our actions are in different cultural settings. So are we able to learn foreign languages? Maybe not the whole system of language, but just a few greeting words, things like that, and other behaviors that we may have. So so now we know our cultural intelligence level. So don't be sad if you do not have all yes to the questions, 9 questions, because cultural intelligence is something that we can improve. So it is very similar to IQ, EQ, intelligence quotient, emotional intelligence, in the way that they measure our individuals' capabilities. But cultural intelligence is also very different from our general IQ and EQ, in the way that cultural intelligence is something that we can really work on. We can improve and develop higher level of cultural intelligence. So now I'm going to show you 4 simple elements we want to pay attention to when we think about improving and developing our cultural intelligence skills. So we will start from the right-hand side. Yes, right-hand side for you. The drive is related to our motivation. So the more enjoyable feelings we have, the more when we are in cross-cultural situations, and the more confident we have in ourselves in adapting to different cultural settings. And so this is about the drive. So and how do we develop more motivation to situating ourselves in cross-cultural situations? And one possible way is every time we are in a different cultural setting, and we would try to learn some languages from a simple step, or try to learn some behaviors, body gestures, and when we successfully do that, and we would gain our confidence in behaving in cross-cultural settings. So that's the first factor. And the second, knowledge. We want to, this one certainly takes more effort and time to gain. So we want to try to gather more information and resources for us to learn more knowledge of certain cultural settings. And the strategy relates to our So for strategy aspect, it's about our different skills and techniques that can help us to develop our confidence level, develop our flexibility in situating ourselves in cross-cultural circumstances. And the fourth one action is about behaviors. So when we are in other cultures, in our other countries, we want to really embrace the culture, really get ourselves to motivated and act like local. So a note here I like to share with you. So sometimes we do not want to follow all the do's and don'ts for certain culture, because sometimes it can be rude if we did not use them in the appropriate ways. So having the idea of cultural intelligence, I hope we can develop such awareness of ourselves in terms of our own mental status and behavior habits when we are in a different cultural setting. And and also when we are in mediation, as mediators, we want to be more aware of our clients, parties involved in the conflict or disputes, about their cultural intelligence level or skills. Maybe sometimes the conflict arises from different cultural understandings or misunderstandings. So that's about the first concept I like to share with you. Cultural intelligence is an individual capabilities. And then you may wonder how cultures are different from each other. So here, when we talk about culture, we do not only focus on national culture. We want to broaden this concept into, like, it includes national culture and organizational culture, maybe also culture related to ethnics. So the second concept I like to share with you is cultural framework developed by Hofstede. So when we talk about the differences among different cultural settings, there are quite a few different typologies and classifications. And this one, so this one from Hofstede, the cultural framework is one of the most popular one and one of the most used one. So I like to introduce to you. So before I talk about the details of the framework, I like to introduce how Hofstede developed this framework. So Hofstede, he previously worked in IBM and as a management trainer. So he really got a handful of, of a great scale of employee opinion data over 75 countries. So when he analyzed the data from employees' opinions, concerns, ideas, he really find out this pattern where employees in certain countries would often perceive things in the same direction, while people from other cultures or nations, they will have quite different views on certain things. So then this data analysis really got Hofstede to think about what are the differences in terms of national culture that make people to view things differently. So then he became a researcher. When he taught a course in Switzerland, he collected more data from 35 countries, and then he developed this 5-dimension culture framework. So I will briefly introduce each one of them because of the time limit. So power distance talks about how power is distributed unequally in a certain society. So if a culture emphasizes high power distance, then people with less power accept and expect that power is distributed unequally and unevenly in the society. So that's the idea of this dimension. Second dimension being uncertainty avoidance. So the higher level of uncertainty avoidance, the society wants to avoid the uncertain things. They want to establish rules and regulations so that they can foresee all types of results. They do not really want to make changes most of the time, while societies which emphasize low uncertainty avoidance, they really want to have more new experiences. So they would embrace the uncertainty and unsure situations. Third dimension, collectivism versus individualism. Here, there's no political meaning attached to these two terms. Collectivism refers to a society emphasize group outcomes, where people have the need to affiliate themselves in different larger groups. And societies emphasize individualism. People want to have more freedom. They see themselves as independent compared to rather than as members of groups. And the fourth dimension, masculinity versus femininity. So society with masculinity, they really emphasize achievement, success, materialism, and assertiveness. While society emphasizes values femininity, they are more people are more oriented at taking care of each other. They want to have quality of life. They focus more on relationship building. And the last one, long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. So society focus more on long-term orientation. They think more about the future. They focus more on pragmatic value of things oriented at rewards. While society emphasizing short-term orientation, they focus on the present and tradition. They will attach more importance to the traditional things in the society. So that's all for the Hofstede's cultural framework. And next, let's welcome my partner Jolie to introduce more details. And thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks Echo. First thing I gotta ask you guys is it okay with you if I take my jacket off? Is that all right? Because it's kind of hot. I promise that's the only thing I'll take off, all right? Okay, we're told that time is tight, and partly because of various sort of things. So what I'll do is to get through the material. I'll speak very, very fast, and that's okay. I'm sure you all understand. No, we're gonna do just sort of. You remember what Echo said about she showed you that circle, and there was acts of action and strategy and information and motivation. Yeah. Okay, so I wanna address a little bit about the sort of the knowledge part very quickly, and the strategy, and then how it translates into behaviors. From a cultural perspective, at least, it makes sense sometimes to keep things simple, right? Because if you try to sort of deal with it too much, it gets very, very complicated. So I want to introduce you to two very quick concepts that fall in the realm of action. So these are the behaviors that we're talking about. The first one we're talking about is, of course, communication, right? Now, I know you can't read that. I know my handwriting sucks. Okay, please hallucinate. That says communication. All right, I should have been a doctor. Now, and for those of us, I mean, all of us know that the two main ways that we can say we communicate, right? We can communicate very directly, or we can communicate a little bit more indirectly. A very quick example, of course, and I've used this before. I'll use it again with John just simply because we did it the other day. I hate your proposal. That's kind of direct. Your proposal's really interesting. Let me think about it. Is an indirect way possibly of saying I hate your proposal, I'll never think about it again, right? So that's kind of one variable in terms of our behavior that we'll use, direct and indirect communication, right? The second variable is this very often used term called face. And you know, they say Chinese are concerned about face, and I think the whole world is concerned about face. We just might have very different definitions of what that actually means. Right? I believe that some American academics will actually say face